boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Sony Pictures' new superhero film set in the Spider-Man universe that doesn't have Spider-Man, Kraven the Hunter. Yes, we get the sixth film in this little universe that doesn't have Spider-Man in it, yet contains all of Spider-Man's quote-unquote villains that are turned into anti-heroes or just flat-out heroes. Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Growing up, reading the comics, watching the animated show in the 90s, and I was excited to hear that they were doing a film adaptation of this character, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ariana DeBose, and Russell Crowe for some reason. This movie is so bad. You know, it's one of these movies that I left the theater, and I don't know, maybe it's the optimism in me. I was like, you know, when I walked out the theater, I was, okay, it's not as bad as people say. You know, it could have been better, of course, but it's not that bad. But the further I drove away from the theater, the more angrier I got. And the more that I thought about the movie, the more angrier I got. It's weird. When I sat down, put my notes together, I got even more infuriated to the point that I almost said, I'm not even reviewing this movie. It is so bad. It is so bad. I can't even begin to tell you all my emotions right now thinking about this movie. I don't even know how to review this film. That's how bad it was. And it's not because, you know, I wouldn't put it up there with the worst movie I ever saw. I don't even think it cracks the top 10 of that. It's close, but it doesn't crack the top 10 of that. But it's so much in this film that if you put it on paper, which I'm pretty sure Sony Pictures did, put it on paper and you go down the list of the things they put on paper that's involved in this film before they started shooting, you had to believe that this was going to be the film to redefine this little Spider-Man universe at Sony. You know, you had Aaron Taylor Johnson playing the lead character. You got Ariana DeBose, who just won an Academy Award a couple of years ago for West Side Story. You got Russell Crowe, an Academy Award winner, multiple nominee in this film. You have CJ Shadon, who is a really, really good director. His last film, what was it? Triple Frontier, that was on Netflix. I want to say about 4 years ago, maybe it was. Really good. A Violent Year was a good film. Really good director. All the stars aligned, man. I mean, it was no reason why this movie should fail, but it did. Well, at least it did with me. I don't know what the box office numbers will be when it's all said and done. But as far as the pantheon of superhero comic book films, man, this is bottom. Now, we've had some bad comic book films to come out this year. One in particular that's set in this universe, and that was Madam Web. I'm not going to put it with Madam Web. Madam Web was 10 times worse than this film. So if you was expecting that quality of bad, you're not going to get that bad of a film. But it is so close. It is so close in the disappointment realm. I wasn't expecting anything from Madam Web. And so when I went to see that and it was bad, it was par for the course. I was like, well, that's pretty much what I thought it would be, a dumpster fire. Now, going into Kraven the Hunter, I wasn't expecting it to be great, you know, but I was expecting at least a generic action movie. You know what I'm saying? Some cool action sequences and stuff like that. Now, it does have some really good action in it, maybe two good action scenes in it. Aside from that, the action really wasn't there. It just wasn't there enough for me to say, okay, well, at least I can see it for the action. No, because in between the action sequences, the movie is just boring and bad. The acting, you heard me list the actors in this movie. They are bad in this film. And you know these are good actors. These are good every single actor in this movie is a good actor. Borderline great. And in this film, they look like they just walked out of high school off of a high school play of Hamlet or something and, and jumped in front of the camera for this. Didn't know what they were doing. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I absolutely love. I have been a huge fan of his ever since Kick Ass. But you could probably go further than that. I'm trying to think of what he was in before that I can compare. But either way, I enjoyed him since then for certain. Last time we saw him was in Bullet Train a couple of years ago. Loved him in Bullet Train. Basically stole the movie, in my humble opinion, from Brad Pitt. Loved him in that film. He did the best he could. I will give him that. He honestly did the best he could. I liked him in the role. You know, he fit it. When they announced him at first, I was like, as Kraven? But he works, you know, physically, he works. He just couldn't, I mean, he couldn't make chicken salad out of this, you know what? He couldn't. And God bless him for trying. Ariana DeBose, my God, man. I don't even know why she was in this movie. I don't know why her character, it's not her fault. I don't know why her character was in this movie. Completely useless. And then the ADR for her character. You ever watched a movie and you saw the ADR was off? It's like watching an old Kung Fu theater film where the dubbing is bad, but it's excused because it's dubbed over, you know, with English language and whatever. So you excuse it. It looked like she had dialogue throughout the film, and after they finished filming, they wanted to change the dialogue, and so they went in for ADR, and she redubbed her lines, different lines, and that's the way it looked. Her words didn't match her mouth. And I only noticed it with her. It probably did with the rest of the cast, but it was very noticeable with Ariana DeBose's character of Calypso in this film. Not to mention that the character was nothing like the comics. You know, the comics, Calypso was this voodoo priestess from Haiti. And in this film, I don't even know where she was from. They didn't give her a story. They gave her no origin at all. Russell Crowe. Well, to be honest with you, Russell Crowe was the typical Russell Crowe that we've seen over the past couple of years. Russell Crowe has not really delivered the style of acting that he's known for early on in his career, you know, with Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind and stuff like that. That Russell Crowe, that's over. We're getting this, I'm only here for a paycheck Russell Crowe for the past couple of films that he's been in, and it didn't stop here. He was so generic in this movie. It's a shame. But I don't know if it was him or the material. Once again, because the material wasn't worth nothing. The screenplay was worth nothing. This movie told me all I needed to know within the first 30 minutes of it. And if you saw it online the last, I don't know, about a month, I'm saying a month, but it could have been sooner than that. They released the first 8 minutes of this movie on YouTube. Sony did. It wasn't leaked. You know, it wasn't pirated or nothing like that. They released it. The studio released the first 8 minutes. I didn't watch it because I wanted to see it on screen. I didn't want to be spoiled or nothing, even though there's nothing spoilery in those first 8 minutes. I just wanted to see it the way it was meant to be seen. And so when we went to see the movie, actually watched those 8 minutes, I was invested. I was like, okay, this is the movie we're getting. I'm cool with it. Everybody's tripping for nothing. That's what's going on in my mind. And then after those 8 minutes, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, well, not his character, but he disappears for about 20 minutes. Because then we flash back to 15 years earlier. And whenever a movie does that, it's something in my mind that just automatically clicks to whereas I'm tuned out. Because I hate story structure like that. I cannot stand that. Why are we, if we're going to start a film, if we want to tell an origin, let's start with the origin. Let's not get hyped up. And it was an exciting scene that first 8 minutes. That was an adrenaline pumping scene. And then it's boom, let's go back. Now we get in the origin. And it was slow. I mean, slow. And you had to sit there and get this origin that could have took one scene. Now, if you was going to flash back and show it, fine. Show this origin, 1 or 2 scenes, fine. But this went on and on and on. And I'm like, where is the character? Where is Aaron Taylor Johnson? And we don't get him for about 20 minutes. And then we get back to the present day. And I don't know. This movie is so, I don't even know how to describe it. And what makes it so weird, this movie is R. This is an R-rated movie. Finally. We've been clamoring for an R-rated comic book movie from this universe. Thought we was going to get it with Venom, because that's the character that needs the R rating. We didn't get it with Venom, but we got it with Kraven. Now, Kraven, fine, it deserves an R rating, to tell the true story of this character. I'd say true story in parentheses, is based on the comic book, but you get where I'm coming from. If we're going to show how brutal and how dark this character is, it needs to be R, and they did that. So that was another thing that had me kind of excited for this film. This movie did not need to be R rated. It was just R rated to say it was R. They just did stuff in this film so they can say, oh, it's an R rated comic book movie, with the kills and the blood and all. It was just gory for gory's sake. And it was insulting. I felt insulted watching this movie. It made no sense. A couple of scenes in here, I really had to just shake my head and laugh. At the end of that little 8-minute opening scene when Aaron Taylor Johnson takes off his shirt to show his just chiseled physique. And I get it. I would want to show that off too if I had a body like that. But it's the way, it's the way that they did it. It was so cheesy. So cheesy. I'm like, man, they just doing this because he had no reason to take his shirt off. Absolutely no reason whatsoever. And they didn't care. It was like, we just want to show his body. And that's what it was. And fine. And I know a lot of women, a lot of people who probably enjoyed that view. And I understand. I get it. Give a little eye candy. But it was so unnecessary. That little 1 minute or 2 minutes of screen time could have went to something else to help explain this story better, because it needed every second to do it. Speaking of every second, this movie was way too long. Way too long. This movie was 127 minutes. This movie was 2 hours and 7 minutes long. Why? For what reasons? This movie was 2 hours and 7 minutes of absolutely nothingness. There is nothing in this movie exciting. You would not, if I hadn't written down some things here, I would have forgotten it. I still, it is the most forgettable movie of the year to me, almost. I remember things about Madam Web. Yeah, to poke fun at, not in a good way, you know what I'm saying? But I remember it. I don't remember nothing about this movie. Absolutely nothing. There's not a scene in here where I'm like, oh man, that was cool. That was cool. That was an innovative way to show this and show that. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, I am I'm disappointed. And I guess the reason I'm going so hard on it is because this is a movie I had zero expectations for. Yet it disappointed me. I, I can't think of a time that's ever happened. Honestly, I cannot think of a time that has ever happened. But Kraven the Hunter found a way to do it. Kraven the Hunter, which is the final film from what I'm understanding in the Sony's Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. They make no more, and thank God. Let it go. Just let it go. But Kraven the Hunter gets a letter grade of a D minus. Yeah, I can't, I can't believe they did that, man. I honestly, this was it was set up, and those first few minutes, the opening scene, I was I was in. They hooked me in. I'm not gonna lie. They hooked me in. I was like, okay, this might be worth a little something if this is the movie we're getting. But it decided to change. And it changed like 4 times. The direction in this film, the tone was all over the place. Man, my God. Yeah, Kraven the Hunter. But hey, I can't even recommend it. Normally, I would say go see it for yourself. Maybe I got it wrong. I didn't get this wrong. I'm this. I did not get wrong. This was not a good movie. I'm sorry. I'll wait for it to come out on Netflix or whatever. I would not waste my money on this film. But if you've seen it and you feel different, please, Jesus, I would love to know what did you see in this film that you thought it was salvageable. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Sony Pictures' Kraven the Hunter. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.